They say family is where you go for love and support. I used to believe that, too, until Christmas morning when my 9-year-old son handed out his hand-drawn cards and the people I call family laughed right in his face. We had just finished breakfast, cinnamon rolls and black coffee, my mother's traditional Christmas spread. The air smelled like sugar and pine, the tree glittered with expensive ornaments, and holiday music played softly in the background. My brother, Carter, was already bragging about the new SUV he bought, his third this year. My mom beamed at him like he had just cured cancer. I sat in the corner of the living room with my son, Noah, both of us tucked away on the floral love seat that still squeaked when you sat down. I was quiet. Always am during these family gatherings. I've learned to stay small, stay polite, and get through it. Carter had just finished passing out his shiny store-bought gifts, designer handbags, a bottle of some overpriced cologne, a drone for our nephew that probably cost more than my rent. Everyone clapped and laughed and praised his generosity. I could feel Noah shift beside me, his little hand gripping the envelope he decorated with stickers and gold marker. "Go on," I whispered to him. "It's okay." He stood up slowly, shy but determined, and walked to the center of the room. "I made something for all of you," he said. His voice cracked a little, but he smiled anyway. "These are Christmas cards I drew myself." He handed one to Uncle Ray, who looked at it like it was a homework assignment. Aunt May gave a tight smile and muttered something about how sweet it was. But then Carter, my charming, successful, golden boy brother, let out a loud laugh. "You couldn't just get some gifts at Dollar Tree or something?" he said, nudging my mother with his elbow. "Guess that's what you do when you're broke, give out kindergarten art." The room laughed, not loudly, but loud enough. My face flushed. I looked at Noah, who was still smiling, still handing out cards like he hadn't heard the jab. And then my mother, Evelyn, the matriarch of the family, the judge and jury of everything I've ever done wrong, took her shot. She looked at Carter, then at me, and said, "Well, what did you expect? She's always been cheap and empty." The room fell quiet for a second. Not out of shock, out of familiarity. That's how she talks to me. That's how she's always talked to me. Like I'm a failure that somehow disappointed her just by existing. And I wish I could tell you that I stood up and said something brave, that I defended my son and myself with power and grace. But the truth is, I froze. Because when you're used to being talked down to, humiliation starts to feel normal. It sinks in so deep you almost forget you deserve anything better. I turned to Noah, ready to scoop him up and leave, but he beat me to it. He held out one last envelope, walked right up to my mother. "I made one for you too, Grandma," he said, holding it out with both hands. "I worked really hard on it." She blinked, clearly not expecting that. Her fingers curled around the card like it was something she wasn't sure she wanted to touch. She opened it. And then she stopped. Just stopped. Her smile disappeared. Her posture stiffened. The same woman who had called me cheap and empty seconds before now stood frozen, silent, staring at a piece of paper with crayon drawings on it. You could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. No one spoke. Not Carter, not Uncle Ray, not Aunt May. I didn't know what Noah had written inside that card. But whatever it was, it silenced the room. And for the first time in years, my mother had nothing to say. Christmas used to be my favorite time of year. When I was a little girl, before the disappointments began, I used to believe in the magic. The lights, the music, the idea that love and warmth were just waiting around the corner in a steaming cup of cocoa. That illusion disappeared by the time I turned 15. Now, Christmas feels like a spotlight, a time for my family to quietly measure my failures against my brother's endless list of achievements. And every year I show up with my son, Noah, hoping for peace, preparing for judgment. We always gather at my mother's house in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's the same 2-story colonial I grew up in, with shutters painted burgundy and a porch swing that's more for show than use. The decorations are always over the top. Garlands on every window, nutcrackers standing guard by the fireplace, a 12-foot tree dripping in gold and red ornaments that probably cost more than a month's worth of groceries for me. The moment I walk through that door, I feel 17 again. Awkward, not enough, and bracing for impact. My mother, Evelyn, doesn't believe in small talk. She believes in making statements that leave marks. She greets me with tight-lipped smiles and comments like, "You didn't do anything with your hair?" Or, "Still driving that old Toyota?" I usually just nod. I've learned there's no winning with her. Then there's Carter, my older brother by 3 years. He's everything my mom ever wanted in a child. Successful, charismatic, dripping in status. A corporate lawyer in D.C. with a perfect smile, a perfect wife, at least on Instagram, and a seemingly bottomless bank account. He never comes without gifts. Expensive ones wrapped in thick, metallic paper with custom tags. He likes to make a show of it, pretending it's casual. He also likes to remind me how lucky I am that Mom still includes me in these family gatherings. I bring one thing to Christmas: Noah. My 9-year-old son, my heart in human form. He's the reason I haven't completely shut out my family. He deserves memories, traditions, moments he can look back on without the weight I carry. And despite everything, he's always excited to go. He doesn't see the judgment. He only sees the decorations, the cookies, the cousins he rarely gets to play with. This year, I knew money would be tighter than ever. Rent went up. Hours at the bakery got cut. Gifts weren't even on the table. I sat Noah down 2 weeks before Christmas and told him the truth. "We can't afford presents this year, sweetheart, but we'll still go to Grandma's and we'll still have a tree and we'll still be together. That's what matters." He didn't pout. He didn't complain. He just looked at me and said, "Then I'll make something instead, something they can't buy." He grabbed his art supplies, spread them across the floor, and got to work. For days, he sat with scissors, glue, crayons, and construction paper. Every card was different. One had a snowman and a dog wearing a scarf. Another had a fireplace and stockings with everyone's name. He even asked me what colors Grandma liked best. Watching him pour so much love into something so simple made me ache with pride and with dread, because I knew what kind of people he was making them for. Still, I let myself hope. Maybe, just maybe, they'd appreciate the gesture. Maybe they'd see the heart in it and not the price tag. I should have known better. When we pulled up to the house that morning, I could already hear Carter's voice from the porch, laughing about something. My mother opened the door before we could even knock. She looked at Noah, then at me. "No coat?" "It's freezing," she said. "I'm wearing one," I replied softly. But she'd already turned away. Inside, the family was gathered, drinks in hand, camera-ready smiles. The gifts were already stacked under the tree, shiny, enormous, excessive. I held Noah's small envelope in my purse, hoping this one thing, this small, beautiful thing, would be enough. Hoping, like always, that this year would be different. It wasn't. The living room was warm, loud, and overly bright. My mother had every light on, like she was staging a show. The fireplace flickered softly, and the scent of cinnamon pine cones hung in the air, artificial and overwhelming. I stood just inside the doorway, brushing the snow off my boots, while Noah gripped the bag with his cards like it held treasure. I saw Carter first, stretched across the leather sectional, legs crossed, drink in hand. His blazer looked like it cost more than my monthly paycheck. His wife, Janelle, was perched beside him in a velvet dress, scrolling on her phone like the rest of us barely existed. "Look who finally made it," Carter called out, grinning. We were about to send a search party. I gave a weak smile. Noah gave a small wave. My mother stepped in from the dining room, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You're late," she said sharply. "Dinner's almost ready. Don't let your food get cold again this year." "I had to shovel the driveway before we left," I said, brushing snow off Noah's hat. "I didn't ask for the weather report," she cut in. Carter laughed. Janelle smirked without looking up. I tried to shake it off. I always do. I walked Noah to the tree so he could place his little bag underneath the massive pile of store-bought gifts. They dwarfed his small, colorful envelopes like skyscrapers around a garden. I leaned close. "Whenever you're ready, honey." He nodded. His cheeks were red with nerves, but he still looked excited. That boy carries more grace in his 9-year-old heart than most adults I know. After dinner, where no one asked how we were doing or how school was going for Noah, we all returned to the living room for the gift exchange, which was more like a display of Carter's disposable income. He passed out gold-ribboned boxes like he was Santa himself, narrating each one. This one's for Mom, imported French skincare. You'll never age another day. And this, for Uncle Ray, custom whiskey glasses engraved with your initials. Oh, and for my dear sister. Wait, oh, shoot. I must have forgotten yours. Everyone laughed. I forced a smile while my stomach turned. It was a joke, I think. Or maybe it wasn't. Either way, the message was clear. When Carter finally finished his gift parade, Noah stood up, bag in hand, and stepped into the center of the room. I made something too, he said, his voice small but brave. I made cards for everyone. Merry Christmas. He reached into the bag and handed the first one to Aunt May. Her painted-on smile barely shifted. Well, aren't you just the little artist? She said, glancing at it like it was a receipt. She passed it to her husband without even reading it. Noah moved to Uncle Ray next, then to Carter and Janelle. Carter took his, flipped it open like he was checking a bill, and burst out laughing. Oh, wow, he chuckled, holding it up. Look at this, he drew me with a briefcase. That's adorable. Can't afford real gifts, huh, buddy? Janelle snorted. Ah, that's cute. Like a little charity project. Noah blinked, but he kept smiling. I could see it falter just slightly, like the flicker of a candle before it goes out. My face flushed with heat, and then my mother spoke. She took the card from Carter, glanced at it, then handed it back without comment. Well, she said, it's just like his mother. Cheap and empty. The words hit like ice water down my back. I looked at Noah. He didn't understand. Not fully. But he felt it. He stepped back, clutching the last envelope to his chest, the one meant for her. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I'd prepared myself for indifference, maybe a few passive-aggressive remarks, but mocking my son's gift, insulting me through him, that was new, that was cruel. Noah turned to my mother, held out the envelope with both hands and said, I made one for you too, Grandma. I worked really hard on it. His voice didn't shake. He didn't flinch. He just looked at her, waiting, and for the first time all night, she didn't have a smug comeback. She took the envelope, slowly, and opened it. She didn't say a word when she took the envelope from Noah. No snide remark, no heavy sigh, just a flicker of surprise in her eyes, as if she hadn't expected to be included, at least not by someone she'd just dismissed so coldly. Her hand hovered over the flap of the envelope for a moment longer than necessary, like she wasn't sure whether to open it or toss it aside. Everyone else in the room went quiet. Carter looked amused. His smirk deepened as if he were expecting another laugh. Janelle raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. Aunt May sipped her wine, probably waiting for the next awkward beat to pass so she could redirect the conversation. No one thought this card would matter, but I was watching Noah. He stood there with both hands folded in front of him, eyes wide, not with fear, but with hope. The kind only kids still carry, the kind life hasn't worn down yet. His cheeks were flushed, and a little glue was still stuck to one of his fingers. I could see the tiny shimmer of glitter on his sleeve, and it broke my heart. He'd worked so hard on these cards, for days. He believed in them, in what they meant. I wanted to take it all back, snatch that card out of her hand, pull him into my arms and leave, but I didn't, because this moment wasn't about me anymore. My mother opened the envelope. Inside was a card, folded carefully in half. Red construction paper, crayon hearts and snowflakes, and right in the center, a drawing, 2 stick figures, one tall, gray-haired with a Christmas sweater, the other small, holding her hand. Beneath it, in Noah's uneven handwriting, were the words, I still love you, even when you're mean. Merry Christmas, Grandma. For a moment, no one breathed. I watched Evelyn's eyes move across the words, once, twice, like she was trying to process them in slow motion. Her lips parted just slightly, and then something happened that I hadn't seen in years, maybe not ever. Her hand trembled. She didn't cry, not yet, but her face changed. The stern, composed mask cracked at the edges. Her jaw twitched. Her eyes shimmered, and she pressed her lips together tightly, like holding back whatever was about to spill out. The room stayed frozen. Carter leaned forward, his brow furrowed, not in mockery this time, but confusion. Janelle blinked and looked away. Aunt May set down her wineglass. Even Uncle Ray sat straighter. Noah just stood there, waiting. And then Evelyn looked up, right at him. Her voice, when it came, was quiet, fragile almost. "You made this for me?" Noah nodded. "Yeah, I wanted to. I know sometimes you say stuff that hurts, but I don't think you're mean all the way through. I think maybe you forgot how to be nice." That did it. She blinked hard, and one tear slipped down her cheek. Just one. She wiped it away quickly like she didn't want anyone to see. But we all saw it. More importantly, she knew we saw it. I didn't move. I couldn't. My legs felt rooted to the floor, my heart thudding in my ears. Not because I was afraid, but because I realized something. Noah had done in 30 seconds what I couldn't do in 30 years. He got through to her. He reached past the armor, past the bitterness, and found the small, hidden part of her that was still human. The part that used to smile easily, the part that remembered what it was like to be a child once. She looked back down at the card. Then she said, in a voice that cracked in the middle, "Thank you, Noah. This is beautiful." She folded the card slowly like it was something precious. I watched her fingers linger on the paper like she was trying to memorize the feel of it. Then she stood up, walked over to him, and hugged him. Not a long hug, not tight, but real. Something shifted in that room. A silence filled it. Not the awkward kind, but the kind that meant something had been broken, and maybe, just maybe, something else had been rebuilt in its place. I sat down on the armrest, stunned. Tears welled in my eyes, but I blinked them away. Because Noah didn't need me to say a word. He didn't need protection or translation. He had handled it all himself, and somehow he had won. My mother doesn't do apologies, at least not the kind that sound like, "I'm sorry." She does corrections, judgments, the occasional backhanded compliment if she's feeling generous. But apologies? They don't exist in Evelyn's world. At least they didn't, until Noah handed her that card, until she read it. And for the first time in my adult life, I watched the woman who raised me look utterly lost. She sat back down slowly, the card still in her hand like it was made of glass. Everyone else was watching, but no one knew what to say. Even Carter looked unsure, like the script had been pulled out from under him. Noah returned to my side and leaned against me. I wrapped my arm around him and kissed the top of his head. He smelled like cinnamon and glue. My chest felt like it might burst. My mother stared at the folded piece of red construction paper in her lap. Her lips were pressed together tightly, but she kept swallowing, like words were fighting to come out. Finally, she cleared her throat. May I say something?" Her voice sounded foreign in its softness, not demanding, not sharp, just unsure. A little girl trying to speak through a grandmother's face. The room turned toward her. She looked at Noah first. "I wasn't expecting that," she said gently. "I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't kindness, especially not after the way I spoke." Noah smiled, simple, sincere. "It's okay." She nodded once, as if the weight of that response knocked something loose inside her. Then she turned her eyes to me. "Sienna," she said, her voice catching, "I owe you an apology for more than just today." I blinked. My ears had to be lying. My mother, Evelyn, just said the word apology. My heart raced. I didn't know whether to cry or brace for another jab. She went on. "I've spent so many years being proud of Carter, his success, his ambition, all the things that shine on paper. But I think I confused pride with value. I didn't realize how blind I was to the strength it takes to raise a child with love, to raise him without bitterness when the world gives you every reason to be bitter." I couldn't move. My hands were shaking, my throat thick. She wasn't saying this with performative drama. She wasn't trying to look good in front of people. Her voice trembled, her hands trembled, but her words were clear. "I didn't think much of the way you parented. I thought it was soft, indulgent, but it's not. It's beautiful. And I'm ashamed that I couldn't see it until today." The room was frozen. Carter looked uncomfortable, fiddling with his watch. Janelle looked at the floor. No one dared interrupt. "I don't expect forgiveness," she added, "but I hope you'll let me start being different, being better. Maybe I can learn from him too." She looked back at Noah. "From both of you." I was still holding him tight, But in that moment, I wasn't holding him for comfort. I was holding him because he had changed the course of something I thought was unchangeable. The dynamic of this family, the rigid wall that stood between me and my mother. He had broken it, not with anger, not with confrontation, but with grace. I took a breath and let it out slowly. "Thank you," I whispered, "for saying that." It wasn't a full reconciliation. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real. And sometimes, real is more powerful than perfect. The conversation shifted afterward, softly, cautiously. People asked Noah to read his cards aloud. Aunt May commented that it reminded her of when her kids were little. Uncle Ray asked if Noah could draw him something sometime. Carter stayed quiet. When it was time to go, my mother walked us to the door. As we stepped outside into the cold, she touched my arm. "Will you leave his card with me?" I nodded. She held it to her chest as if it were made of gold, and that's when I knew something truly had changed. Not completely, not forever, but enough. Noah reached for my hand as we walked toward the car. He was humming softly. I looked down at him, this little boy who had no idea how powerful he really was, and for the first time, maybe ever, I felt proud, not just of him, but of me. Because I had raised him with the kind of love that doesn't just survive bitterness, it melts it. The drive home was quiet, but not in the heavy way it usually was after one of my family's gatherings. This time it felt peaceful, like something had shifted, not just in them, but in me too. Noah sat in the back seat, his eyes fluttering closed as the Christmas lights lining the streets blurred into soft glows outside the window. He hummed a little melody he'd been making up for days. I glanced at him in the mirror and thought, he has no idea what he just did. Or maybe he does. Maybe children know more than we give them credit for. When we got home, I tucked him into bed, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "I'm proud of you." He was half asleep, but I swear he smiled. Then I went to the kitchen, sat down with a cup of tea, and let everything hit me at once. I kept replaying it, the way my mother held that card, the way her voice cracked when she said, "I'm sorry." I had waited my entire adult life to hear those words from her. I had pictured them in so many ways, during a fight, after a breakdown, in some dramatic family confrontation. I thought it would be loud and messy, but it wasn't. It was quiet, honest, vulnerable. And it wasn't because of anything I did. It was because a child, a 9-year-old boy with glue-sticky fingers and too much heart, chose kindness when he had every reason to respond with hurt. I've always believed in teaching Noah to lead with empathy, not because life is fair, but because people aren't always kind. I wanted him to know the power of choosing love anyway. I just never expected that lesson to circle back to me so powerfully. For years, I'd carried resentment like armor. Every sharp comment from my mother, every joke at my expense from Carter, every cold look across the dinner table, I wore them like invisible scars. I told myself I was just surviving. But watching Noah, watching him look into the face of someone who belittled me and offer her love anyway, it made me realize something. I wasn't just surviving. I was still holding on to pain I never gave myself permission to release. I used to think forgiveness meant letting people off the hook, but Noah didn't let anyone off the hook. He didn't pretend what she said didn't hurt. He didn't ignore it. He just chose to respond with something stronger. Love. And not the soft, naive kind, the kind that costs something, the kind that risks vulnerability, the kind that says, "I see your flaws, I see the damage, and I choose to show up anyway." I don't know if my mother will change permanently. I don't know if we'll suddenly become the kind of family that hugs a lot and shares feelings at the dinner table. Probably not. But for the first time, she saw me. Not as a disappointment, not as a burden, but as someone who raised a child capable of grace. And in that moment, I saw myself too. Not the version of me that shows up tense and braced for impact, but the version that's been there all along, the one who's quietly raised a boy with the kind of strength this world desperately needs. The next morning, I got a text from my mother, just one sentence. I put Noah's card on my nightstand. That was it. But it meant everything. It wasn't a grand gesture. It didn't erase the past, but it started something. something I didn't think was possible between us, healing. And maybe that's the point of this story. Not that people suddenly become perfect, not that every wound closes cleanly, but that sometimes the smallest gestures, the crayon hearts, the glitter glue, the brave words from a child, can open doors that years of anger never could. So if you're sitting with wounds that haven't healed, if you're carrying words that never should have been said, I want to tell you something. You're not weak for feeling hurt, but there is strength in choosing love anyway. Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can give isn't a gift you can wrap. It's the grace to say, I still love you, even when you're mean. And that's a gift that can change everything. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you of your own family or a moment where kindness changed everything, please take a second to like this video. It helps more people find stories like this one. And if you've ever experienced a moment like this, where someone's simple act of love broke through something hard, I'd love to hear it. Leave a comment below. I read every single one, and your stories matter. Don't forget to share this video with someone who might need it today. Whether it's a parent, a friend, or anyone carrying hurt, sometimes a small reminder of hope makes all the difference. And if you enjoy honest, emotional storytelling that speaks to real life, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story.